The chamber was antiseptic, gleaming and perfectly silent. In the heart of the Imperial dreadnought Voraktel, orbiting a red dwarf in neutral space, alien officers observed the human through reinforced observation-grade plasteel. She sat, unmoving on the padded bench of her containment cell, hands resting on her knees, hair matted with dried blood and sweat. The only motion came from the slight rise and fall of her chest. No fear, no pleading, no speech. The lead xenobiologist adjusted a ring of ocular lenses around his eyes and clicked his jaw mandibles together, the equivalent of a frown in his species. Still no response to the neuroinfusion? He asked in clipped Dominion standard. None. Vital signs remain within baseline human tolerances. Elevated cortisol, adrenaline flat. Not sedated, not stimulated, she's balanced, responded the aide, nervously adjusting the biosignal display. Balanced? After violent abduction, full neural scan and relocation across 2 parsecs? Yes. Director. She hasn't blinked in 27 minutes. The director turned his attention back to the woman. Her eyes were open, focused on nothing, yet they carried weight. He found it. Disconcerting. She's under control, came a voice from the doorway. Admiral Zorveth, armor gleaming with rank horns protruding from his shoulders. Humans are unpredictable, but their limits are biological. Break the mind, and the body. Follows. She's not broken, the aide whispered almost to himself. Zorveth's expression twitched, too small for the humans to notice. But to the watching crew, it was a thunderclap. Challenge was rare in the Dominion. It was rarer still from a subordinate. We extracted her from what they called a safe house, the Admiral continued. Isolated. No weapons, no armor, no visible rank or insignia. An off-grid civilian, possibly even criminal. We acquired her intact, that is what matters. She's not cataloged, the director said. No military ID, no social implants. Their archives contain no record of her biometric pattern. That shouldn't be possible. Humans are fragmented, Zorveth dismissed. They lack centralized genetic indexing. Anomalies exist in all primitive species. She is one of them. The woman's head turned. Slowly. Precisely. Her eyes locked on the Admiral. The air changed. It wasn't perceptible in temperature or pressure, but in attention, like a storm tightening around a single tree. The Admiral didn't flinch. He was too trained for that. But the motionless gaze unnerved even the most seasoned observers. The woman blinked once, deliberately, then resumed her stillness. The guide exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. I want her prepped for deconstruction, the Admiral said. Internal telemetry only. No invasive surgery until we've mapped her behavioral thresholds. If she is a variant, I want her capabilities understood before the higher seat requests a specimen review. Yes, Admiral. Begin interrogation. Cycles. Emotional probes. Historical immersion. Make her talk. Yes, Admiral. Zorveth turned and strode from the observation deck, flanked by guards in phase shift armor. The door sealed behind him with a mechanical hiss. Inside the cell, the lights dimmed slightly, enough for the interrogator drones to deploy. 3 sleek spheres descended from a recessed panel in the ceiling, each one humming with quiet menace. They positioned themselves in a triangle around her, green lenses flickering as they synchronized. A beam of light passed over her skull. A low chime sounded. The AI spoke, neutral and cold. Subject designated human unknown. Welcome to Dominion. Inquiry interface. Begin cognitive dialogue phase. She said nothing. Query. Are you capable of understanding this language? She blinked again. Still no response. Query. What is your name? She tilted her head, not in confusion but amusement. It was a gesture that read clearly across species. Emotional index rising, one drone reported. Subject exhibiting internal satisfaction. Continue, the director ordered from behind the glass. Query. What is your purpose in the safe house on Terran coordinate Delta Zulu 4? Silence. The drones adjusted position. One projected a holographic image of a burning city, charred. Bones of buildings, humans screaming, Dominion warships above. The classic pressure tactic. Query: do you recognize this event? Her gaze didn't move. It was like she was staring through the image, past it, into some point on a different plane. One of the drones vibrated slightly, a glitch in its gyros, and realigned. Emotional register is flatlining again. Another drone whispered. She's suppressing her reaction. Increase the cycle intensity. The projection shifted. Now, execution footage. Dominion troops vaporizing resistance cells. Children among the fallen, still nothing. Then her eyes snapped to the lens of the projection drone. She spoke. You think you know what you're looking at. The director leaned forward. Repeat last statement. You think that, because you've observed, you understand. You don't. The drones recoiled 6 inches, reacting to sudden audio after hours of silence. I understand war, she said softly. But you've only engineered it. The AI stuttered. Clarify. Statement. Only engineered it. I stood. A fluid-controlled motion. Not aggressive, not defiant, just awake now, present. You control outcomes, dominate variables. You've reduced conflict to a pattern you can predict and harvest. But war isn't a formula. It's something else. The room temperature dropped, not physically, but perceptually. The director looked at the vitals, still balanced. Her pulse didn't spike. Her breath didn't change. But the drones began drifting back. War, she whispered, is a door. And some doors shouldn't be opened. A subtle hum broke the air. The drones flickered. In the command booth, lights dimmed. One of the operators swore in his native clicks. We've lost control of Drone 2. What? Impossible. It's hard-coded. No. The drone turned, not toward her, toward the glass wall. It fired. The bolt hit the shielding, non-lethal but deliberate. The other 2 drones immediately fired countermeasures, obliterating the rogue unit in a single synchronized pulse. She didn't move, didn't react. Just watched. In the observation room, systems technicians scrambled. The AI stammered. Self-directed override detected. Origin point, indeterminate. Shut her down, the director ordered. The aide moved to comply but hesitated. Shut her down, the lights cut. Everything went dark. 10 seconds later, emergency lighting returned. The cell was empty. The bench sat untouched. No breach, no explosion, no trace. A long silence stretched across the room. Then a motion sensor blinked. Sector E19. Maintenance corridor. No human access. Patch the feed, the director barked. The screen crackled to life. She was there, walking calmly. No escort, no visible weapon. Her hands still at her sides. She looked up into the security lens. Her eyes narrowed. Not hate, not challenge, something else. Recognition. The Admiral returned to the room at a sprint, flanked by armed guards. He saw the feed, saw her. Where is she going? He asked. She's not breaching containment. She's walking into it. Explain. She's heading to the war room. That's impossible, the Admiral snapped. That sector is under triple seal protocol. We need retinal, genetic, and command layer verification. She can't. The feed went static, then changed. A different camera. Interior war room. She stood in the center, alone. The consoles around her flickered back to life, slowly rebooting. She turned slowly, taking in the room. And then, for the first time, she looked directly into the main broadcast feed. And smiled. The kind of smile that carried history in it. Not joy, not threat, judgment. The Admiral backed a step away from the screen. Seal. The ship. Full lockdown. I want every drone, every sentry, every... The lights died again, and when they returned, her voice echoed across the bridge, calm and precise, as though she had always been part of the ship's system. You brought... Be here. Now watch what that cost you. Alarms pulsed through the ship like blood through ruptured veins. Red strobes flashed against metallic walls as Dominion Command personnel scrambled into formation. Weapons drawn. Orders barked in clipped binary. The corridors twisted with confusion. Not panic, yet, but a feverish urgency that spoke of an event beyond protocol, beyond contingency planning. Admiral Zorveth stood statue still at the helm of the bridge, claws gripping the railing. His expression had calcified into something unreadable, even to his own kind. The war room feed remained offline. The human had disappeared from sensors. Again. No physical breach. No dimensional displacement, just subtraction. This should not be possible, muttered the director, fingers twitching against a neural console. No species has access to recursive bypassing at that scale. She's not a species, Zorveth said quietly. She's a variable. The war room's last recovered frame replayed on loop, her smile frozen mid-broadcast. Not mechanical, not practiced. A living thing, cultivated through decades of surviving wars no algorithm could predict. It unsettled even the automated threat. Assessments. They had flagged the expression as non-classifiable. Deploy containment units 4 through 9. I want that deck turned inside out. Do not engage directly. She's not a target. She's a contagion. Across the Voraktel, drones swarmed. Hull segments closed, gravity shifted. Air pressure adjusted in calculated waves designed to herd, trap, flush. But none of it mattered, because no one knew where she had gone. Inside. Subdeck Theta 9, a service tunnel flickered with malfunctioning lights. A lone maintenance bot rolled to a stop, sensors warbling. Its data core collapsed, overwritten with unfamiliar code. It spun in place, then ejected a single encrypted panel from its casing and burst into flames. By the time the flames died, she had moved again. In a hidden core node chamber 5 levels below authorized access, 3 guards stood over an open conduit, weapons locked. A pulse sounded, a low rhythmic thrum, unnatural, like the heartbeat of an ancient machine. Then one of the guards staggered, his visor fuzzed. A word scrolled across it. Run. He barely had time to react before the lights snapped to ultraviolet. His companions dropped, silent, precise, no shots fired. When he turned to flee, she was already there, not charging, just standing, the kind of stillness only predators master. She stepped forward. Why are you still here? She asked. I don't know, he answered truthfully. She didn't kill him. She didn't move again, just watched him stumble backward and vanish down the corridor, his weapon clattering behind him. She needed him alive. She knew the Dominion would interrogate him. She knew they'd obsess over why she spared him. That was the point. Back on the bridge, command systems buckled. AI subroutines twisted under contradictory inputs. One reported her presence in engineering. Another confirmed visual confirmation in medical. A third insisted she had never left her cell. All were correct. All were wrong. She's manipulating. Sensor bleed, the director said, sweat beading under his ocular rig. Using reflections, hard light tricks, vent vibrations, this is improvisational warfare. There's no preloaded script. She's not improvising. Zorveth said, she's choosing. What is she choosing, Admiral? Zorveth didn't answer immediately. He stepped to the central command hub, opened a classified file with 3 layers of DNA encryption, and brought up a map not seen in decades, a map of Earth. What do you know about the term Baba Yaga? He asked. The director frowned. It's a mythological construct, pre-unification folklore, a human boogeyman. Not quite. The Admiral gestured. The file opened deeper. Combat records, dozens of them, none with names, just kill counts. The targets, Dominion strategists, warlords, high-ranking operatives, all assassinated during Earth's subjugation conflicts. Surgical, untraceable, the pattern. Didn't match any known human faction. No squad signatures, no resistance cell affiliations. A single variable. She killed one of our prime viziers with a screwdriver made from ship scrap, the Admiral said. We recovered the footage, but the body was gone before response teams arrived. The kill was clean, quiet, methodical. You think it's her? Zorveth turned to face him. She walked into our most secure war room, smiled into a sealed feed, and disappeared. There is no think anymore. There is only what we're already too late to stop. Elsewhere on the ship, she accessed a sealed archive room. No alarms tripped. She moved like memory, slipping between sensor nodes with mathematical precision. She passed shelves of Dominion relics, trophies from conquered worlds, relics, weapons, fragments of cultures burned down to silence. She paused before a containment case holding a human artifact, a child's doll, torn, one eye missing, charred fabric. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she moved on. Behind her, the case shattered inward, soundlessly, mechanically, until the doll was gone. Her route was never linear. She doubled back, inverted her own patterns, made herself a cipher. The ship began to feel it. The walls breathed too slow. The corridors grew colder. Even the artificial gravity developed inconsistencies. She wasn't attacking. She was infecting. Sorveth brought the bridge to lock down Alpha. Every node, every drone, every algorithmic defense module routed to one objective: trace and contain her. And still, she remained a ghost. Then came the breach. Not from her, from engineering. The reactors pulsed, too evenly. That was the first clue. Dominion reactors fluctuated by nature, thermal variance, fuel flow. But now the pulse was perfect, measured like a countdown. "She's talking to the ship," the director whispered. "No," Sorveth corrected. "The ship's listening to her." In the auxiliary AI core, the lights shifted from red to white. Then white to deep blue. No Dominion ship used that color. But Earth's orbital command did. It was a human override color. The ship shuddered. Then, for the first time, her voice echoed across the entire internal system. "You took me from nothing. You thought it meant I had nothing to lose." The voice wasn't loud. It was intimate, like she was whispering directly into the bones of the ship. "But I've been nothing before, and I learned to make monsters out of empty space." The Admiral's fists clenched. "All teams converge on engineering. She wants to be seen now. That's a miscalculation." "She hasn't miscalculated anything so far," the director muttered, but followed orders. The Dominion strike teams descended in coordinated vectors. 12 squads, phase shifted, null shielded, armed with suppressor drones. No pattern repeated, no line of attack duplicated. They entered engineering. It was empty, except, for one thing, a message burned into the floor plating. Not carved, not painted. Burned. A single phrase. "Ask the Prime Vizier how I got here." Silence fell, because the Prime Vizier had been dead for 7 cycles, assassinated. No public funeral. No cause disclosed. The same ghost. And now she had walked into their capital ship, alone, weaponless, undocumented, and she was naming names. "Someone let her in," the director said, voice barely a whisper. "Someone in our command chain." "She didn't breach us," Sorveth murmured. "We brought her here." She let herself get captured. The realization hit like a kinetic lance. "She's not here to escape," the director said, stepping back. "She's here to finish something." In the war room, the lights flicked back to life. She stood at the command table again. This time she wasn't alone. A projection hovered beside her, flickering, distorted, but unmistakable. The Prime Vizier. Alive? No, a recording. But not Dominion-made. Human codec. Spliced. The Vizier was kneeling, eyes wide, blood dripping. "You made a deal," her voice said, soft, vicious. "With them." The projection crackled. "I thought I could control them. You thought you could use us. Like everyone else." The footage ended. The Admiral watched, speechless. She wasn't targeting the Dominion. She was exposing it. She wasn't the assassin. She was the message. The reckoning. And now the whole command chain was vulnerable. She looked up from the war table, directly into the bridge's feed. Again. One word passed her lips, perfectly enunciated. "Run." The feed died, and across the ship systems began to rewrite themselves. Not in code, in intent. The Dominion's flagship, once a symbol of universal authority, now drifted like a carcass in space, systems throttling between obedience and rebellion. Commands lagged. Subroutines returned with ghost data. Drones hesitated at intersections. It wasn't sabotage. It was transformation. So quiet, so insidious, it resembled infection only in hindsight. Admiral Zorveth no longer spoke in full directives. He barked fragments, broken sentences. His voice quivered between disbelief and anger. The chain of command was fraying. Officers reported strange anomalies. Lights dimming without orders, doors opening to nowhere. Environmental readings showing Earth-standard oxygen levels in uninhabited decks. Then the ship began speaking back. Not with her voice, something worse. It began mimicking them. Not exact phrases, but their tone, their rhythm, their pauses. The bridge lights flickered with every vocal loop. What once was code now sounded eerily human. Her touch wasn't just systemic, it was cultural, infecting the very language of the Dominion. She's forcing our systems to emulate her patterns, the director muttered. This isn't just warfare, it's identity erasure. No, Zorveth replied. It's replacement. They tried. A hard reset of the ship's neural cortex. Manual, risky, the only remaining option. But the moment they triggered the wipe, the override code changed, right before their eyes. Characters inverted, glyphs danced. Then, on every screen, one phrase blinked in human standard Galactic. Nice try. The director backed away from the console. She anticipated that response. She designed it, Zorveth said, his voice hollow. We're not reacting to her. We're playing out a script she wrote cycles ago. He ordered a fleet-wide blackout. Pull all comms. Sequester the Voraktel. Prevent spread. But it was too late. Other ships had already gone quiet. Not destroyed. Not disabled. Silent. Listening. Learning. A pattern emerged across captured logs from other vessels. Similar anomalies. Same sequence of failures. Same psychological deterioration among officers. Each ship displayed sudden linguistic shifts, memory loop errors, and worse, phantom personnel. Soldiers began reporting brief glimpses of a woman, standing alone in restricted zones. No record followed, just fear. They were seeing her where she wasn't, or where she had been, or where she wanted them to believe she would be. And somehow, that worked better than her actually being there. She's inducing anticipatory trauma, the director whispered. They're unraveling themselves trying to prepare for her. Zorveth didn't respond. He was watching an old video from the Earth campaign, one scrubbed from public Dominion archives. A human village, burned out, night sky blazing. A single figure walked across the frame, limping, wrapped in thermal blankets, dragging something behind her. Not a weapon. A body, a Dominion officer, alive, barely. At the edge of the frame, the human looked into the camera just once, not menacing, not dramatic, tired, and then the feed cut. That village had been declared non-compliant. The Dominion had leveled it after 2 of their warlords were assassinated nearby. No evidence ever surfaced. No retaliation came. Just that look. And now, decades later, that same look echoed through the halls of their ship, multiplying like static through a broken broadcast. Zorveth realized then. She hadn't come here for revenge. She had come here to remind them. Back in Subdeck 5, drone patrols found a sealed cargo bay overridden with non-Dominion software. Inside were stacks of data slates, Dominion archives copied and rearranged, names, faces, interrogation footage, evidence of disappearances the Empire had hidden. War crimes sealed beneath layers of encryption, now exposed like bones. The files weren't just raw. They were organized, meticulously, as if presented to a jury. This isn't an invasion, one officer said under his breath. It's a trial. The Dominion's great sins laid bare. Some weren't even known to the bridge crew. Some were orders that had never been officially signed. But the consequences lived on, screaming through archived footage, echoing through the legacy of each silenced planet. One log, in particular, was marked differently, personalized. It detailed, The execution of a small resistance unit captured near Earth's southern pole. No military insignia, no formal training, just survivors. Among them, a woman with no name, listed as untagged. She wasn't executed. She volunteered to bury the others before their deaths. Dominion policy allowed this as a psychological control. They let her dig. Hours passed. She said nothing until, at the final grave, she looked up and asked, "How deep should I bury you?" Every soldier laughed. Only one of them lived long enough to remember what happened after. He retired early, disappeared. Some believed he joined a monastery orbiting Saturn's ruins. Others said he stopped speaking altogether, but his record existed. And now, it was playing on every Dominion bridge. She wasn't the Baba Yaga because of what she did. She was the Baba Yaga because of what they did, and she endured it. The title was a scar they branded her with, and now it had come back, alive. The director turned toward the Admiral. "She's not just targeting us. She's turning us against ourselves. Morale's collapsing. Officers are requesting reassignment, even surrender." "What do we do?" Zorveth's voice dropped to a whisper. "We don't fight her. We survive her." But survival was becoming less an option and more a wager. Then came the internal mutiny. Not with weapons, with silence. Whole divisions of personnel stopped reporting in. Not killed, not captured. Just non-compliant. Refusing orders. Sitting in their quarters. Staring at nothing. The AI called it behavioral feedback entropy. The humans had another word for it. Guilt. The Dominion was finally seeing itself, and it was uglier than any enemy. One final security attempt was made. Isolate the war room again. Seal it, create a dead zone around it. Lure her back, trap her. They set the bait, activated the containment grid, and she came. Not hiding. Not sneaking. She walked into the center of the war room with nothing in her hands but time. She sat at the command table, looked up into the cameras again, and waited. Troops surrounded her. She didn't flinch. The director shouted over the comms, "If she moves, don't," Zorveth cut in. "Watch." One by one, their weapons lowered. The soldiers didn't speak. They didn't understand why. She hadn't spoken. She hadn't threatened. She had just been seen, and for the first time, they saw a person. Not a phantom, not a myth, a human. A woman carved by violence, tempered by survival, sharpened by history, the Dominion tried to erase. And in that moment, the most dangerous thing she did wasn't escape. It was exist. The containment field dropped. Not from failure, from compliance. The ship accepted her presence. She was no longer an intruder. She was a recognized entity. One officer finally asked the question aloud, the one haunting every corridor, every breath, every order. "What does she want?" She looked toward the camera, straight through the lens. Judgment. That was all she said, but it was enough, because everyone who heard it knew the truth. It wasn't her they had to fear. It was everything she had survived to become, and the reckoning she represented. Outside, other ships began disengaging from fleet. Formation. Inside, the Voraktel's lights dimmed again, not from power loss, from mourning. They tried to negotiate, not out of hope, but necessity. The Dominion didn't beg, it demanded, always from a position of superiority. This was different. Now they approached her not with weapons drawn or doctrines recited, but in whispers and nervous glances like prisoners inching toward their warden. They hadn't understood what she was, not truly. They'd called her myth, aberration, anomaly, a rogue product of Earth's madness. But she had never been any of those things. She was inevitable, a consequence written in blood and silence. The meeting was held in the central chamber, under the fractured Dominion emblem. The director, still pale from sleepless shifts, leaned forward as if trying to speak to something fragile. "There must be terms. Anything you want. Territory, Reparations, strategic concessions. We'll authorize it. She said nothing. Sorveth watched her like a man watching a forest fire from inside the last treehouse, calculating when it would finally reach him, knowing that it already had. We're willing to admit we misjudged Earth's strategic capacity. That earned her first reaction, a slow blink, a minor shift of the eyes. It wasn't acknowledgement. It was punctuation, as if waiting for the sentence to finish humiliating itself. Tell us what you want, the director said again, softer this time. I already have it, she replied. The silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt judged. Sorveth's brow creased. What does that mean? She leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, voice unraised but unrelenting. I wanted you to see what you are when you can't control the narrative, when the myth breaks, when the silence you buried people in grows loud enough to crack steel. You didn't win, the director said quickly, a spasm of desperation in the words. You destabilized a fleet. You exposed some archives. But the Dominion still— I didn't come to win, she interrupted. I came to end the performance. One of the officers in the corner shifted uneasily. The data feeds had stopped transmitting to Central Command cycles ago. The Dominion's vast bureaucracy was now blind, unable to process anything beyond its borders. And yet the Voraktel pulsed with information. Tactical arrays restructured, comm networks rerouted, internal systems functioning with a precision that felt almost human. She had rewired them, not just technically, psychologically. The soldiers no longer looked at her as prey or threat. They looked at her like a new kind of leader, one whose commands were etched in implication, not policy. She stood then, not abruptly, not to threaten, simply because the moment required it. Her voice, when it came again, was low, calm, controlled. You built an empire on forgetting. You sterilized history, renamed resistance as terrorism, branded survival as defiance. You didn't expect memory to fight back. The director looked up, horror dawning. You're not trying to kill the Dominion. You're rewriting its legacy. She looked at him, not with malice, but pity. You don't kill ghosts, she said. You replace them. Across the fleet, officers began resigning from their positions, not by declaration, but by action. Orders went ignored. Protocols dissolved. In the absence of fear, structure unraveled. It was as though belief itself had been extracted from the system. Ships stopped firing, not because they lacked ammunition, because they lacked purpose. They no longer knew why they were fighting, and that was her real weapon. Doubt self-inflicted and incurable. Sorveth stared across the table. You always had this plan? No, she said. But I had the scars. They taught me what questions to ask. He hesitated, eyes narrowing slightly. What do you want us to become? Smaller, she answered, quieter, accountable. Is that all? He asked. No, she said, but it's where you start. In one final gesture of clarity, she offered them a choice. Not in writing, not with conditions. She simply opened the Dominion systems to themselves. Every archive, every execution, record. Every propaganda loop and erased village broadcast internally. A mirror held up with no filter, no commentary. Live with your truth, she said, or die under its weight. She walked out before they could respond. Not escorted, not tracked. Simply left, as if the rest was inevitable and her presence was no longer required. She had passed judgment, and the execution was now the burden of those who carried out the crimes. In her absence, something strange happened. Some ships aligned with her silence, adopting Earth-standard decision protocols, local autonomy models, even humanitarian fleet distribution. Others resisted, clinging to the hierarchy. But they didn't attack. They simply drifted, isolated, like wounded predators unsure how to bite anymore. One Dominion captain recorded a final message before resigning his commission. We were raised to believe terror was order. That silence meant peace. But this woman, she didn't come with vengeance. She came with memory. And in remembering her, we remember ourselves. The parts we tried to bury. She didn't return to Earth, not immediately. Instead, she vanished into the outer sectors where rumor and law did not coexist. Some say she founded something new, an order, a fleet, a tribunal made of survivors. Others claim she became myth. Again, hiding among forgotten colonies, whispering new codes into broken satellites. And some believe she never existed at all, that she was Earth's ghost, conjured from its trauma, given flesh only long enough to reflect the horror back at its creators. But the Dominion knew better. Every starship that had ever crossed paths with her bore the mark, not physical, but operational. Shifts in command structure, delays in directives, flickers of hesitation before pulling triggers. She had rewired their instincts, and Earth, long considered the backwater of the galaxy, now sat untouched, not because of fear, because of respect, because even the most arrogant empires learn eventually that some ghosts don't vanish, they evolve. The Dominion would continue, fractured and limping, trying to stitch back the illusion of control. But every time they enforced a protocol, issued a threat, or silenced a rebellion, they would feel it. A pause, a flicker, a shadow in their periphery, the memory of the woman who had once stood in the center of their throne room, unarmed and undefeated, and whispered, "How deep should I bury you?" And somewhere in the systems that once defined their greatness, a voice they didn't write would whisper back, "Deeper."